You have cables sitting in a drawer right now. Some of them look almost identical, same black plastic, same size, but they perform completely differently. Plug in the wrong one and your 4K monitor is stuck at 1080p. Your 165Hz gaming display drops down to 60Hz, or your PS5 can't run games at 4K, 120 FPS, even though it is fully capable of it. This is exactly what we are fixing today. Every HDMI and DisplayPort version clearly explained. HDMI 1.0, 1.1, and 1.2. HDMI 1.0 was released in 2002. Before HDMI existed, connecting a DVD player to your TV required separate cables. One cable for video, one cable for audio. HDMI changed all of that by combining both signals into a single cable. It supported up to 1080i resolution and could carry 8 channels of audio at once. For 2002, that was genuinely impressive. HDMI 1.1 and 1.2 followed shortly after. These added DVD audio and Super Audio CD support, mostly audio improvements. Nothing significant changed visually. HDMI 1.3 and 1.4. HDMI 1.3 arrived in 2006 and made a noticeable jump. It doubled the data transfer speed and introduced deep color support. Screens could now display billions of colors instead of millions. If you place the two side by side, the richer one is immediately obvious. But the version that really changed things was HDMI 1.4. Released in 2009, HDMI 1.4 introduced 4K resolution support for the very first time. However, it could only run 4K at 30 frames per second, not 60. This made it unsuitable for gaming but perfectly fine for watching movies. HDMI 1.4 also introduced ARC, Audio Return Channel. Before ARC, a separate optical cable was needed to send audio to a sound bar. With HDMI 1.4, the same cable sends video to the TV and audio back to the sound bar. One cable, two direction, that was a big deal. HDMI 2.0. HDMI 2.0 launched in 2013 and fixed the biggest complaint with HDMI 1.4. It could now run in 4K resolution at 60 frames per second, not just 30. Games and movies in 4K now looked smooth, not just sharp. HDMI 2.0 also added HDR support, high dynamic range. HDR makes bright areas brighter and dark areas darker without losing detail in either. If you have ever watched a movie and noticed a vivid sunset while still seeing faces in the shadows, that is HDR. HDMI 2.0 also supported wide color gamut. This became the standard port on most TVs and monitors sold between 2015 and 2021. If you are using a TV purchased anywhere in that window, you almost certainly have HDMI 2.0. HDMI 2.1, the current king. HDMI 2.1 is the most powerful version of HDMI available today. It supports 4K at 120 frames per second. It supports 8K at 60 frames per second. And technically, it even supports 10K resolution. The bandwidth jumped from 18 gigabits per second or HDMI 2.0 to 48 on HDMI 2.1. This is nearly 3 times faster. HDMI 2.1 introduced variable refresh rate or VRR. Screen tearing happens when your GPU output frames at a different speed than your monitor refreshes. VRR allows the monitor to assign its refresh rate dynamically to the GPU output. This eliminates tearing without the input lag that old VSYNC caused. HDMI 2.1 also upgraded ARC to eARC, Enhanced Audio Return Channel. The original ARC could only carry compressed audio, whereas eARC can now carry full lossless formats including Dolby Atmos and DTS:X. PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X both require HDMI 2.1 to run at 4K 120 FPS. Without HDMI 2.1 on your TV, those consoles are being bottlenecked by the cable. However, not all HDMI 2.1 ports deliver the same performance. Some manufacturers label a port as HDMI 2.1 but quietly cap its bandwidth. Always check the specs sheet, not just the label on the port. DisplayPort 1.0, 1.1, and 1.2. DisplayPort was developed in 2006 by a group of PC hardware companies called VESA. Unlike HDMI, which was designed for televisions, DisplayPort was built specifically for computers and monitors. DisplayPort 1.0 already supported 1080p at 60 frames per second. Version 1.1 added support for fiber optic cables for longer runs in professional setups, nothing that affects most regular users. The real upgrade came with DisplayPort 1.2 in 2010. Version 1.2 introduced multi-stream transport. This allows a single DisplayPort cable to drive multiple monitors simultaneously. Instead of needing a separate cable for each computer, you could DC chain displays from one port. This became widely used in professional workstation and multi-monitor gaming setups. DisplayPort 1.3 and 1.4. DisplayPort 1.3 arrived in 2014. For the first time, it pushed beyond what HDMI could do at that time. It supported 8K at 30 frames per second and 4K at 120 frames per second. This was before HDMI could match either of those numbers. Version 1.4 in 2016 made things even better. DisplayPort 1.4 introduced display stream compression, or DSC. DSC is a compression technology that reduces data without visible quality loss. This allowed DisplayPort 1.4 to support 8K at 60 frames per second with DSC enabled. It also became the standard port on high-end gaming monitors above 144 frames per second. If you want a 165Hz or 240Hz monitor bought in the last few years, it almost certainly has DisplayPort 1.4. DisplayPort does not require manufacturers to pay a licensing fee, unlike HDMI. This is why budget monitors often include DisplayPort. It costs less to put on the board. DisplayPort 2.0 and 2.1. DisplayPort 2.0 was announced in 2019 and DisplayPort 2.1 refined it in 2022. These are currently the highest bandwidth display connections available anywhere. DisplayPort 2.1 delivers 77.4 gigabits per second of bandwidth. HDMI 2.1 maxes out at 48 gigabits per second. DisplayPort 2.1 is more than 1.5 times faster. With this bandwidth, DisplayPort 2.1 can run three 4K monitors at 144 FPS simultaneously. It also supports 16K resolution at 60 frames per second. Despite this incredible performance, DisplayPort 2.1 is still rare today. Most graphic cards and monitors currently support DisplayPort 1.4 at most, but GPU manufacturers have started including it on their latest flagships. Thunderbolt and USB-C display. Thunderbolt is a connection technology developed by Intel in partnership with Apple. Thunderbolt 3 and 4 both uses the USB-C connector, but inside that connector, Thunderbolt carries video, high-speed data, and charging power all at once. This is why a single USB cable can connect your laptop to a monitor, charge it, and transfer files simultaneously. But not all USB-C supports video output. Only ports with a Thunderbolt logo or a DisplayPort symbol next to them can output video. Thunderbolt 5 was released in 2024 and is the most capable version yet. It carries DisplayPort 2.1 signals inside the USB-C connector. This means a single Thunderbolt 5 cable can now support 8K or even 16K displays. So, the next time you reach into the cable drawer, you will know exactly which version you need, and you will know why the wrong one could be silently limiting your entire setup. Anyway, I also made some other cool videos too, so don't forget to watch them later. Okay.